Now, the last couple weeks, we've had fun learning about culturing salmon, as well as catching some beautiful rainbow trout. But I think this Wednesday, let's get back to the Walters. Well, staying in theme with walleye, I want you to join me on a recent trip down to the Picton area where I hooked up with Captain Ed Mackenzie of Chasing Ice Charter, as well as a good friend of mine, Dave Tollett. We also met a few familiar faces out on the water. Have a look. I'm here in Picton Bay with Nick Stojanovic, and he'd like to wish you
Happy Walleye Wednesday.
Yeah, baby. Dave Tollett and Ed Mackenzie from Chasing Ice Charters, we'd like to wish you all
Happy
Walleye Wednesday.
Happy Walleye Wednesday.
Yeah, baby.
Happy Walleye Wednesday!
Yeah, baby. Now, as we began to set up for what was definitely going to be another great adventure aboard Ed Mackenzie's Chasing Ice Charter, it dawned on me why I was really there. I actually started to think about, what if this incredible fishery wasn't here anymore? What if there was something we are doing right now that was potentially doing harm to this system of water? Now, I, like many, enjoy and depend on this fishery for what it is and what it offers. And as a lover of walleye, and I mean big walleye, I'm concerned about what is happening currently right now in the Bay of Picton. I'm also concerned for all my fellow anglers who equally enjoy and depend on this remarkable fishery. Okay, I'm here with Dave MacKay. Dave?
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, but what is such a pleasure is you have taken such a stance when it comes to protecting the Bay. Tell me a little bit about how you came to the Bay of Quinte. Have you lived here all your life? Or?
No, I moved here in 1975 and eventually became the principal of the high school. And I love the community. The community's been really good to me and my family.
How I became aware of the Bay of Quinte is I used to culture fish. And we used to get a lot of our broodstock, our eggs, and our milk from Bay of Quinte run walleye.
Yeah.
So the Bay of Quinte has a special place in my heart. When you brought that Facebook page, a post to Facebook about the salinity and the concentration of it coming from that runoff, I'm concerned. And I'm concerned for my friends as well, who, as I said, depend a lot on that Bay of Quinte. So the history is the salt has always been there.
The salt has been there for about the last, probably I would say the last, off and on for about the last 40 years, but in very, very controlled circumstances. Okay. But the new guys brought in vastly more salt, and they don't abide by the rules, the regulations, they don't cover it. They've been ordered by the ministry to cover the salt. You can see when you went by today, there are hundreds of thousands of tons of salt up there, of which probably about 30,000 tons are uncovered right now.
Yeah.
And we have had brutal rain.
Yes, we have.
Unbelievable rain.
And you can see it leaching down the walls.
But worse than that, if you want to take a look, I brought you a gift. Here's a gift for you. Don't drink it.
Okay.
During the last rainstorm, I went over from right beside the terminals and took this water from the runoff. I want you to go home and boil it down. And you'll find when you boil that down, and that's 2 cups of water there, 500 milliliters, you'll find in that there are 2 tablespoons of road salt.
Wow.
Now, just in that one stream location that I took it from, if there were 100 liters going over there in a minute, now that's not very much, that's only 25 gallons, and in a rainstorm there's a lot of it going, that would be 13 tons of road salt in a day.
And road salt, as we all know, it's very harmful to the environment. It's corrosive. It's not good for ecosystems, whether they be water ecosystems or just land-based ecosystems. This is not a good thing for our environment.
And the property next to it, beautiful piece of property 5 years ago. Beautiful pond on it. The deer were there, full of frogs, amphibians, lovely trees. The pond now where the water runs through into the bay, totally dead. There are no frogs living there. The deer used to come, no deer. All that's running directly into some of the finest pickerel water in North America. Thank God, I've heard that the ministry, the fisheries ministry, has been down. They weren't down last week during the rainstorm, and I think they were shocked at what they were seeing there. The amount of salt running into the bay. Everybody says, you know, the bay, it's water. It'll absorb it. you can't absorb that much water into a small bay like Picton. And not only has it got salt in it, but the problem with this water is it's also got cyanide in it. And the cyanide is in there to keep it from clumping. That's right near our drinking water. Our drinking water intake is probably about half a meter from there. This winter, you probably know, we lost our drinking water for 10 days because a barge sunk there and put contaminants into the water. So the whole operation over there is causing irreparable harm to the bay. And they will not follow regulations. They won't listen to the Ministry of Environment. So, I think there's a group of citizens here formed called Save Picton Bay, and they're determined that they're going to do something about it.
A gentleman that I fished with today, Ed Mackenzie from Chasing Our Charters, has been on that body of water since the 70s and has seen a change, because you used to be able to catch walleye right off the docks in Picton Bay. That doesn't happen so much anymore. And of course, there's many reasons why the fishery has gone the way it is. But as you talk about, and as I said to Ed, what is the major event that has happened in the bay that you've seen that has altered the fish? And of course, zebra mussels.
Yes.
They were huge in terms of cleaning up the water and not making it as prolific as it could be or once was in the bay. But now you add this to the element, that's not good.
It's not good. It's not good. And I know that when I moved there in '75, there wasn't a zebra mussel to be found. And now, of course, it's just the whole bay is contaminated with them, but we're never getting rid of them. But, it's funny, we never seem to learn from our mistakes. We find all kinds of ways to contaminate the water, and we continue to do it. And I don't know why we can't learn, after all the knowledge and all the science available, we can't learn to say, listen, enough is enough.
Right. So in regards to the timeline, you have a litigation that's upcoming?
First court appearance was on October 27th, and it's rescheduled for the end of February.
Okay.
And they'll make a decision on the zoning issue, because our contention is that it's not zoned properly, and they shouldn't be allowed to operate there the way they are. Second thing is they've started another vast construction project up there in which they're operating on land that's it was designated as RU1, residential agricultural property, and it was a buffer zone between the houses, etc. They've started to tear that down, they blast every day, and they're tearing that down. How they got, I don't know where the permits, the permissions are, because it's not zoned that way. So that's part of the court cases, to say, how can you do that? How can you operate when it's not zoned that way?
Wow.
When I think about living on the water, if I was to throw more than a few rocks into the water, the Ministry of Environment would be right on me. It's regulated.
Yes, absolutely.
These people have devastated that environment with salt and rubble and rock and dust. And they've been cited by the ministry, they've been written up by the ministry, and they continue to do exactly what they want.
And I mean, I don't want to ask an obvious question, but how is it's possible to have salt that close to the shoreline? Like, it's an obvious question, but I mean, it is an enormous pile of salt. And
That's
it's
the other
right at the shoreline.
And they had that before. When they had the small loads of salt come in, they immediately moved them to the back. They were always moved to the back, and they had holding ponds where there was runoff that could handle the runoff of the salt. Not anymore. They bring in such vast amount of salt. They don't cover it. They leave it right on the shoreline instead of moving it back. The little holding ponds are up there completely overrun. They don't work anymore. They built a berm that they thought was going to protect it, keep the salt from running. It ran right underneath the berm and back out to the bay again.
Now, I've seen the size of Picton. There's no way that all that salt is due for the roads here in Picton. Now, I know you have bad winters, but there's no way you're going to use that much salt.
That salt, I think, goes north as far as Barry's Bay. It goes over to Brockville, and as far east, I think, is Port Hope.
Wow.
So it's a vast area. And of course, that's the other concern we have, is we have these thousands of trucks hauling salt through the county. And you've probably driven up Highway 49. It's not much of a road to begin with.
It's not.
And these trucks are just beating it to pieces up there as they go up and down the road. But yeah, so, and that's, running thousands of trucks up a highway is not environmentally sound practice either.
Where does the salt originate from? Where does it come from?
You know where it comes from? From Windsor. It's Windsor Salt.
Okay.
It's owned by Windsor Salt. And the owners of the terminals have said, really, all they are is a storage unit. The salt is Windsor Salt's problem. They're the ones that own it.
So for the general public that may not know a lot about what's going on with the salt, but certainly have a vested interest because of their love for walleye in Picton Harbor, how does someone get involved?
Well, I think you can go on and take a look at Save Picton Bay website.
Okay.
Or go on Save Picton Bay Facebook, and there's a whole history of what's been happening. There's videos, there's areas that you can contact for more information. There is a place you can donate if you want to donate money for legal fees to help us fight that kind of a situation. So it's all there on Save Picton Bay Facebook or Save Picton Bay website.
I appreciate you doing this. I've learned so much about salt and how it's affecting the Bay of Quinte. And with that, we are going to do what David has asked us to do, and we are going to boil up this sample of water and see what's left. Now, I'm no scientist, but that can't be good for anything or anybody. And remember, catch your limit, limit your catch, practice catch and release every chance you get, and conserve our waters. This week's episode is dedicated to chasing ice charters, fishing for tails with Captain Greg Amiel, and of course my good friend James Mathias of Seize the Day Fishing Charters and Adventures. Till next week, guys, all the best.